Day 479, Tuesday, July 30th. Psalm 47 and 48, Psalms 47 1-9 NKJV to the chief musician, a psalm of the sons of Korah. Oh, clap your hands all you peoples. Shout to God with the voice of triumph. For the Lord Most High is awesome, He is a great King over all the earth. He will subdue the peoples under us, and the nations under our feet. He will choose our inheritance for us, the excellence of Jacob whom He loves. With a shout, the Lord with the sound of a trumpet. Sing praises to God, sing praises. Sing praises to our King, sing praises. For God is the King of all the earth, sing praises with understanding. God reigns over the nations, God sits on His holy throne. The princes of the people have gathered together, the people of the God of Abraham. For the shields of the earth belong to God, He is greatly exalted. Psalms 48 1-14, NKJV, a song. A psalm of the sons of Korah. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in His holy mountain. Beautiful in elevation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. God is in her palaces, He is known as her refuge. For behold, the kings assembled, they passed by together. They saw it, and so they marveled, they were troubled, they hastened away. Fear took hold of them there, and pain, as of a woman in birth pangs, as when you break the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so we have seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought, O God, on your loving kindness in the midst of your temple. According to your name, O God, so is your praise to the ends of the earth. Your right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice, let the daughters of Judah be glad, because of your judgments. Walk about Zion, and go all around her. Count her towers, mark well her bulwarks, consider her palaces, that you may tell it to the generation following. For this is God, our God forever and ever, He will be our guide even to death. Daily Deep Dive, the UCG reading plan states, in theme Psalm 47 follows right on from the previous psalm, where Psalm 46 ended with God coming in the person of Jesus Christ to establish His authority and peace throughout the earth. Psalm 47 speaks of not only the subduing of the nations verse 3, but also of the enthronement of God again Jesus Christ as the great King over the entire earth. While God is already the King of all creation, this psalm focuses on His future intervention to assume direct rule over the kingdoms of mankind. Compare Revelation 11:15. This psalm belongs to a group of hymns to the great King found elsewhere clustered in Psalms 92-100. Here it serves to link Psalms 46 and 48, identifying the God who reigns in Zion as the great King over all the earth. V2 CV 748. Zondervan, note on Psalm 47. The clapping of hands and shout in verse 1 is to applaud Christ's victory as well as His coronation and enthronement, as when Joash was crowned king of Judah in 2 Kings 11. God having gone up Hebrew Allah in Psalm 47:5 speaks in context of His ascending the throne, where we afterward find Him seated verse 8. The words greatly exalted at the end of verse 9 are also translated from the word Allah. Furthermore, in verse 5 we again see the shout of verse 1 as well as the sound of a trumpet or ram's horn. Such a trumpet blast was part of Solomon's coronation, see 1 Kings 32-39. It seems likely that trumpets and applause were regular features in the crowning of Davidic kings, as it will be in the enthronement of the ultimate king in David's lineage, Jesus Christ. In later Jewish worship, psalm became associated with the Feast of Trumpets, symbolic of the future time described here. In verse 7, where the NKJV has understanding, the Hebrew word is actually maskil, a term seen in the titles of other psalms, most recently other Korahite psalms, 42-45, that may designate an instructional psalm or, as the NKJV usually translates this, contemplation. Verse 9 tells us that in His reign over the whole world, the shields of the earth will belong to God. Nations will no longer strive to thwart God's power. They will lay down their armaments and take up implements of peace. Isaiah 2:4. It should be noted, however, that the Greek Septuagint translators instead of shields understood this as kings, perhaps because kings served as the protectors of their people. Compare Psalm 9:18. In any case, all will submit to God's rule. Psalm 48 locates the great King's throne in Mount Zion, Jerusalem. It is referred to as God's holy mountain verse 1, yet this should also be understood as figurative of God's kingdom, a mountain being symbolic of a kingdom in prophecy. Compare Daniel 2:35, Daniel 2:44-45, Isaiah 2-4. Note the phrase in Psalm 48:2, beautiful in elevation, or beautiful in its loftiness Niv, neither the original fortress of Zion, David City, nor the Temple Mount area he later incorporated, formed the highest peak in the area. Today the Mount of Olives looks down over Jerusalem and the Temple Mount as it did then. However, we should understand that the general area of Jerusalem was of higher elevation than the surrounding land of Judah and central Israel, so that people in pilgrimage to the holy city would ascend to it. Nevertheless, the main idea here concerns Jerusalem's spiritual exaltation, as the city of God's tabernacle and temple, and of the throne of God's anointed king over Israel and Judah. Jerusalem was the peak spiritual location on earth, and it will be on a much grander scale in the future. Even today, Jewish immigration to the Holy Land from anywhere in the world is referred to as Aliyah, ascent. In the same vein, another focus of the passage is the physical city of Jerusalem as representative of the city of God now presently in heaven to later descend. Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, Hebrews 12:22, see Revelation 21-22. The reference to the sides of the north in verse 2 could signify the Temple Mount and royal palace being on the north side of David's city. Yet it may also signify the heavenly mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north, above the heights of the clouds, see Isaiah 13-14. The verses here would also appear to portray on some level the spiritual Zion or Jerusalem of today, the Church of God, wherein God now dwells through His Spirit and which He greatly blesses and protects, compare Hebrews 12:22. Yet the primary focus of Psalm 48 is the future time of Christ's reign over all nations, as in the previous psalm, when Jerusalem, as the capital of God's kingdom, will truly be the joy of the whole earth. Verse 2. God in the person of Christ will literally dwell bodily in Jerusalem's palaces or citadels, governing the earth from there. That this is the principal backdrop we discern from the message of the previous two psalms, as well as the apparent time setting of Psalm 48 4-7. This section describes from a different point of view the final battle at Christ's return, referred to in Psalms 2:110. Psalm 48 describes the approach and hasty retreat of the errant kings. The connection between this text and Psalm 2 is heightened by the use of an unusual Hebrew word for fear, a term meaning trembling or quaking terror, which is found in both places. Psalm, Nelson Study Bible, note on Psalm. The imagery of God breaking ships of Tarshish in verse 7 is later found in Ezekiel 27. Where the figure is meant to symbolize the destruction of ancient Tyre and its commercial system, as well as, chiefly, the destruction of end-time Tyre, the international power bloc also known as Babylon, the parallel account of its destruction being found in Revelation 18, see the Beyond Today Bible commentary on Ezekiel 27. Beyond the wars and assaults, Jerusalem will be safe, because God will be her refuge, Psalm 48:3, repeating the message of Psalm 46. Coming to the splendor and magnificence of God's holy city, and the wonderful way of life proclaimed from there, visiting pilgrims will remark, "As we have heard, so we have seen." Psalm 48:8. These words call to mind the reaction of the Queen of Sheba in visiting King Solomon. "It was a true report which I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. However, I did not believe the words until I came and saw with my own eyes, and indeed the half was not told me. Your wisdom and prosperity exceed the fame of which I heard." 1 Kings 10:6-7. How much more will this be true of Jerusalem during the reign of the great King, Jesus Christ? Visitors are encouraged to walk about and enjoy the city's awesome beauty, Psalm 48:12-13. Parents will tell their children that the city, a bastion of righteousness and justice, exemplifies the everlasting God, see verse 14. Just as God provides evidence that He is the Creator, Romans 18-20, in Jerusalem He provides evidence that He is the King in its note on Psalm 48, 9-11, the Expositor's Bible commentary states that Jerusalem will be a God-given visual aid, encouraging visitors to imagine and to reflect on the long history of God's involvement with Israel, and of the evidences of His unfailing love, Hesed. Though verses 9-14 paint a vivid picture of the future, the words here also applied well to the experience of the Israelites in ancient times, as they came to Jerusalem and its temple to worship. Just the same, these words can have immediacy for us today as we ponder being part of spiritual Zion, God's church, and what that entails, and as we consider what God will yet do for us in the wonderful age to come. Finally, it should be pointed out that some have objected to the last words of this psalm, which in the NKJV state that God will be our guide even to death. If the interpolated word even is left out, this would seem to make God our guide to death, as if to say He leads us to death. This may be why the Septuagint translators changed the final words to forever, which is used earlier in the verse, However, the phrase even to death is certainly true, that God is with us and guides us through all our lives, even to the point of death. Of course, God will ultimately guide us even beyond death. It may be, as some have argued, that to death is actually part of a postscript to this psalm or of a prescript to the next. A cue phrase meaning set to the tune of another song titled Death, perhaps an abbreviated form of Death of the Son, mentioned in the superscription of Psalm 9. N.